Government kicked this off on the first day that they came into power. It's still going to be a few months before you're going to start seeing orders out.
So going forward, where do you see defense-related initiatives going forward? Where do you see manufacturing-related, initiatives of the government going forward? Are you confident that ease of doing business initiatives will succeed? What is your take on these entire initiatives that have been taken by the Modi administration in the past 1 year?
I'm very optimistic. I think let's come to ease of doing business. I think a lot of work has been done there, even in the defense sector. A lot of simplification has come in. FDI 49%, at least now that chapter is closed.
Absolutely.
Nobody discusses it. Any number of companies from abroad are coming in with 49%.
The big ticket
the big ticket will only come when there is a demand, when there is an order. Nobody is going to come and set up an aircraft factory with no orders, no?
Right. Yeah.
It will come with orders. This is number one. Number two, tax simplification has happened in defense. There used to be a big problem between, public sector, private sector.
Right.
That has been taken care of.
Right.
So that simplification has happened. The licensing simplification has happened.
Right.
We had to go every 1 year to renew our license. We didn't even know whether next year we're going to have the license or not.
Right.
Now you have 7 years.
Plus
so
3
you
years.
have plus 3. So you have a longer time frame. Now we are awaiting for the new procurement policy that the defense minister has promised, and work is going on because we are involved in that work in progress in terms of giving industry view.
My last question to you, sir. One big problem that several MSMEs which we spoke to face is regarding financing, especially in the defense sector. Because many banks do not understand the way how, the dynamics of this defense sector is. What, according to you, is a solution and what is a way forward as far as financing in the defense sector is concerned?
I think, you're looking at the symptom. Let me tell you a little bit about MSME, because I have done a lot of study of MSME, being chairman of CI Defense Committee.
Yes.
MSME, whether you're in the defense sector or whether you're in any other sector, today large portion of MSMEs are suppliers to public sector units or defense companies in the public sector. Now, there is a systematic destruction of MSMEs that is beginning to take place. Not because somebody is doing it purposely, but it's just that that's the way the system is, falling apart. Now let me explain what I mean by that. Today, when you go to a public sector and a private sector is competing with the public sector, before this equalization of taxes happened,
right,
there was an unequal level playing field. Okay? So a private player had to be far more competitive to manage the same cost level as a PSU.
Right.
Okay? So what did he do? He went and squeezed the small guy out of all the margins,
right,
on his supplies. Okay? When a private guy started doing that, the PSU started doing the same thing.
Right.
So it's the small guy who got impacted the most.
They feel the brunt of this entire.
Yeah.
Right.
And he almost got into a destruction phase. So generating a level playing field, making the rules of the game equal, is a fundamental prerequisite for the supply industry, which in India largely is the small and medium industry, to survive and flourish.
Right.
Think about it.
On that note, we'll end this segment. Mr. Kalyani, thank you so much for joining us, and wish you all the best for your new endeavors in the defense business. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, that was Kalyani Group Chairman Baba Kalyani speaking exclusively to CNBC TV 18 on the shop floor of his Pune-based factory. What makes this company different is the fact that it's willing to invest in creating capacity and capability in the defense sector, even when there is no guarantee of orders from the Indian Armed Forces. It remains to be seen if government policies support this company, which has a proven track record in the manufacturing sector. But for this week, it's a wrap on this edition of Make in India, a New Deal for Defense. We'll see you again next week. Till then, from the entire team, goodbye and many thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to Make in India, a New Deal for Defense. I'm Shireen Bhan. Tata Motors has been tied to India's defence sector for the past 50 years. From a supplier of trucks to combat support vehicles, it's been a gradual transformation for the company. Today, the defence business accounts for annual revenues of about 1,000 crore rupees, but Tata Motors is hoping opportunities in the domestic and the export market will lead to a threefold jump over the next 4 to 5 years. Sajit Mangat travels to Tata Motors hub on the outskirts of Pune to bring you this story.
Nearly 160 kilometers from Mumbai, on the outskirts of Pune in the Pimpri district, is the Tata Motors plant. Spread over 1,200 acres, this facility not only manufactures passenger and commercial vehicles, but is also a hub for the company's research and development for its defense vehicles.
We are at Tata Motors production facility in Pune. What you see behind me is a range of defense products.
Tata trucks have dominated the commercial vehicle market, but now the company is hoping to increase its presence in the defense segment. For a major part of the last 50 years, Tata Motors has been supplying its trucks and troop carriers to the Indian Armed Forces, a journey it began from Jamshedpur. The first military lorry that Tata Motors manufactured was under license from German major Mercedes-Benz.
We've been supplying vehicles to the Indian Armed Forces since 1956. And we now have supplied over 100,000 vehicles to the army and the paramilitary forces and to the police. And many generals I meet nowadays, they say that when they joined the Defense Academy as cadets, they had the 1210 truck of Tata. And now when they are retiring as lieutenant generals, they are still very happy that Tata is with them in, of course, upgraded versions of that vehicle.
Having supplied vehicles to the defense sector for nearly 40 years, Tata Motors decided to expand its offerings in 2003, when the defense sector was opened up.
In 2003, we were very encouraged by the government's resolve to involve the private sector in areas in the defense domain that were heretofore blocked. For example, in the land systems category, we could now move from logistics vehicles into making combat support vehicles and combat segment.
But the transition from commercial vehicles to combat vehicles wasn't easy. The company had to invest in technology and stitch together collaborations to enhance capabilities.
Now, when we graduate from logistics vehicles into combat vehicles, there's a whole new set of technologies that are involved. Independent suspensions, pneumatic suspension, and a lot of plug-in war equipments that need to be plugged onto the vehicle and operate. For that, we've developed a new set of technologies, and we are talking to many collaborators who will help us in this endeavor, including Tata Group companies such as Tata Advanced Systems, Tata Power SED, and TCS.
Tata Motors banked on the goodwill and familiarity it enjoyed with the defense services to make its presence felt.
Goodwill plays a big part, but basically it's our technology, it's our value for money, and more importantly, it's our after-sale service and availability of our spares. Because you see, the army is not located in the cities. It's along the borders in Rajasthan, in Jammu Kashmir, right along the border in the northeast. And in all these locations, we have a Tata Authorized Service Center or a Tata dealership that is easily available to the Indian Army for quick repairs or for their service.
The initial military vehicles had imported components, but Tata Motors developed its R&D program to increase indigenization. Here at its R&D facility in Pune, the company developed indigenous front and rear axles for the first time in 2005-2006. Till then, these were imported. Tata Motors entered into a partnership with Cummins to develop and supply a family of 180 horsepower to 580 horsepower engines. The next logical step was to develop high-end ruggedized gearboxes and auxiliary gearboxes for multi-axle drive vehicles for defense forces. Today, nearly a dedicated team of 70 work on defense products for the MOTS market or military off-the-shelf market.
Our R&D is the base of our foray into defense sector. We started with the axles, all-wheel independent axles, and development of all-wheel independent axles and development of hub reduction axles. The engines are basically coming from our primer range, and so is the gearbox coming from our primer range. It's putting together the engine axles and creating various variants, whether it is a 4x4 vehicle or a 6x6 vehicle or a 6-axle all-wheel drive 12x12 vehicle to carry the Prahar missiles. All this has come out from basically our engineering center, who are doing a mix and match of all these aggregates.
Tata Motors has been working simultaneously on the development of commercial vehicles and products for the defense segment. Today, it specializes as an aggregator of defense logistics and combat support vehicles.
Putting together a vehicle that is undergoing very stringent military testing, high altitude testing in the Himalayas at -30 degrees, testing in the desert terrain at +50 degrees, and we've passed out with flying colors.
Tata Motors recently bagged a large order from the Army for its 6x6 all-wheel drive vehicle. It competed with 3 companies including the incumbent BEML Tatra. The initial order of 1,269 units is valued at 900 crore rupees, with an option clause for an additional 600 vehicles at the same price to be supplied over the next 3 years. Tata Motors will start supplying the trucks by December this year.
In fact, our 6x6 high mobility vehicle with the crane has passed technical trials, and we've actually got an order now from the Indian Army for more than 1,000 units. Now this replaces the legacy vehicle which was Tatra.
Over the years, the Indian Army has improved the process of putting out its requirements. The request for proposal or the RFP process has become transparent and requirements are now more detailed. This has allowed Tata Motors to aggregate products as per specifications. For Tata Motors, customization was a challenge, given it was a mass manufacturer, but the company overcame this by setting up a separate division in Jamshedpur looking specifically at the defense segment.
It is up to our engineers to understand that qualitative requirement and to create a vehicle to meet that requirement. And we've done it very successfully. And we are supplying now almost vehicles worth 1,000 crores to the defense forces every year. So that's testimony of how our R&D has met the customer's needs, and we've been able to deliver vehicles to fine-tune our vehicles to their requirements.
Tata Motors' product portfolio ranges from a 1-ton light armoured Safari to a 12x12 all-wheel drive Primer variant. This flexibility in providing 4x4 all-wheel drive to a 12x12 all-wheel drive allows its vehicles to be used as commander vehicles to troop carriers to mobile platforms for sophisticated missile systems.
Developing a vehicle, a 12x12 all-wheel drive vehicle, drive-through axles, very high-powered engines, 580 horsepower engines, the accompanying gearboxes that can take the torque matching that engine power, and to drive that power right through the train up to the last wheel. Those are the technologies that we developed while developing the 12x12. So now we have a 6x6, 8x8, we have a 10x10 developed for the Smerch missile system, and we've got the 12x12 also.
Tata Motors is participating in the production of Future Infantry Combat Vehicle or FICV program. This program, part of the MAKE program category, is currently at the EOI stage. The FICV program is already 4 years behind schedule after the government withdrew the EOI midway 2 years ago. While the Future Infantry Combat Vehicle program moves at a snail's pace, the DRDO floated a tender for the Wheeled Amphibious Armoured Platform. Tata Motors won the bid for all parts of the program. The company, under guidance from Vehicle Research and Development Establishment of the DRDO, has developed a product called Kestrel. This has enhanced the company's expertise in combat vehicle platforms. The Kestrel has already undergone internal trials and is under testing with DRDO for rapid user trials. The company already has orders for a couple of prototypes. The Army is likely to use this vehicle for UN peace missions overseas. A more advanced and rugged version of this vehicle will be tested for domestic deployment.
Army has recently floated a tender for a light armored multi-role vehicle. This is really a new generation vehicle. We displayed it at the Defense Expo 2 years back. And it has a construction of independent suspension, automatic transmission, very high powered engines. It's a very mobile vehicle. It is used by the reconnaissance forces, and the body is fully protected.
Tata Motors has developed the Light Armoured Multiple Purpose Vehicle, or the LAMV. This product is also under active testing and will eventually be offered to the paramilitary forces.
This is one of the mine-protected vehicles manufactured by Tata Motors. Tata Motors supplies these to states like Maharashtra and Chhattisgarh. It also exports these to some of the countries in Africa.
The Mine Protection Vehicle, or the MPV, will be extensively used by the state governments of Maharashtra and Chhattisgarh to counter insurgency and Naxal attacks. These mine-protected vehicles, designed in the form of a hull, can carry up to 14 paramilitary personnel and under attack can sustain blast impact of up to 21 kilos of explosives. Tata Motors has already supplied 40 such vehicles to the Maharashtra government. It's not just the domestic market. The company is also actively involved in exports to countries in Africa and the SAARC region. Tata Motors says it is closely eyeing demand from the overseas aid and development market.
What we have seen lately is the aid and development market growing, and government budgets abroad shrinking, but donations by the US or the UN to countries in Africa especially, these budgets are growing. And therefore, we are getting inquiries from various US aid missions for supply of vehicle. There was a tender last year for supply of 500 vehicles for a project called MINUSMA, which Tata Motors won. It was $40 million, and we won against international competition, and we've supplied all those vehicles.
Tata Motors is one of the biggest players in the light armoured vehicle segment, commonly called bulletproof vehicles. These armoured SUVs like the Safari or the Sumo are increasingly being used for VVIP protection.
I can say that as more and more people get into Z category and Z plus category, orders for such vehicles are growing. So we are hopeful that this will grow. And as far as the armored Sumo is concerned, the problem that our security forces are facing, especially in states like eastern part of Maharashtra or Chhattisgarh or Orissa and Bihar, the demand for armored Sumo will continue.
Tata Motors today gets 1,000 crore rupees in revenues from defence annually. In the next 4 to 5 years, it hopes to grow its business 3 times.
Now, Tata Motors may be relatively new in the land system segment, but it's learning fast. The Kestrel project has encouraged the company to pitch for future land system projects to build via the MAKE program. On the other side of the break, Sajid speaks to Vernon Narona on the IPR controversy that plagues the MAKE program. Stay tuned. You're watching Make in India, a new deal for defence. Welcome welcome back. You're watching Make in India, New Deal for Defence, and today we're looking at the capabilities of Tata Motors in this sector. While only 2 MAKE programs have gone beyond the stage of expressions of interest, those were related to the electronic and software segments. The only MAKE project in the land systems that even came close to the AOI stage was the FICV, or the Future Infantry Combat Vehicle program. Even this was retracted due to ambiguity over the evaluation process. The government is now expected to come out with the EOI for the FICV project under the MAKE program. But the MAKE program itself is embroiled in an IPR controversy. Sajit Mangat speaks to Vernon Narona at the Tata Motors Mine-Protected Vehicle Factory to find out more.
Thank you for having us at your facility. I want to begin by asking you what all is manufactured in this facility.
In this facility, we are concentrating mostly on the hull-based vehicles, like the mine-protected vehicle. It's built on a monocoque hull.
Okay.
Or the Kestrel there's also a monocoque hull. Or we have any other vehicles that will come with a monocoque structure will be built in this facility.
This segment is basically the transformation that has which Tata Motors has done after 2003, right?
Yeah, this segment is purely military and security forces customers only. Those are, that side we make military vehicles which are tweaked from the civilian chassis-based vehicles, but these are pure for the security forces.
What are the main issues for MAKE program as of today?
I think in the MAKE program, some progress has been made in awarding 2 contracts. One is the TCS, Tactical Communication System, and one is the BMS.
Yeah.
But in the land systems, we are eagerly awaiting for the EOI to be issued under the MAKE program for the FICV. Okay. It was issued a couple of years ago, but it was retracted, and now they are about to issue it again.
It's a military contract. What was the ambiguity in that kind of system which was existing earlier? Because since 2003, there has been a lot of projects which have been given, but not the sophisticated projects. But what was the ambiguity which was existing?
What we are informed is that the evaluation criteria was not made known to the players before the EOIs were evaluated. Okay. So this time they are going to be very careful, and I believe they have already determined what are the evaluation criteria. They are also determining the weightage they will give to each of the evaluation criteria, and once that's ready, they will issue the EOI.
The controversy about control of technology comes in, right, in the MAKE program, because if you might have the final IPR, but you may not have the IPR for the subsystems.
Yeah, so we can get the IPR in a way for the lower generation subsystems, and then we can work on that and improve and create some post-contractual IPRs through a joint development, and upgrade the system as we go along.
So what the private sector is asking for is flexibility in terms of first generation of product for IPR, and in the second generation the private industry can build up on the first generation to create its own IPR.
To develop that. Take that as the first stepping stone and to move up the technology.
Is the government receptive to such a thing?
They've employed a nice committee, a good committee of 10 eminent people, and they're taking suggestions from everybody. So I'm sure the committee will be able to take our suggestion and effectively trade off what they want now and what they want in the future, and kick off the industry. Let's start making Mark 1 of anything, and then progress to Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4. Today we are sitting and we are wanting Mark 3 and not getting anywhere. So let's start with Mark 1 and then engage the private industry or the public industry, I mean public sector, to invest in R&D and take generation 1 to generation 2 and generation 3.
Another issue which is there is a level playing field between private sector and defense PSUs. There is an argument within the private sector that private sector doesn't get the level playing field when it comes to production, the kind of incentives the defense PSUs get. Are you hopeful that the minister would be able to address that kind of issue?
I think so. I really believe that he is sincerely looking at it. There is a will. In fact, by giving us the order for the 6x6,
which is going to replace the Tatra.
Which is going to replace the Tatra, Our two competitors were the Ordnance Factory Board and BEML.
Both public sector.
And were both public sector. So there's a move in the right direction by giving such a contract to the private sector.
But those are just vehicle contracts or slightly compact support contracts. When it comes to compact vehicles, will you get the same kind of level playing field?
I believe so, and that's why we are investing. Another thing is you can't wish the public sector away. They are there. I think an approach to cooperate with the public sector, like we've done on the Kestrel.
Yeah.
We have collaborated with VRD and we've created the Kestrel.
VRD is the arm of DRDO, which looks into vehicle research and development.
So there's a place for everybody. There's a place for private sector, there's a place for the public sector, there's a place for DRDO.
Give us some idea about how you went about doing it, and you cooperated with DRDO in that project.
Right. So as I told you, we were looking at competing for the FICV program, and we were an ERI holder before it was retracted. But our ERC team, which was working on the FICV, continued to work on infantry combat vehicles. In the meanwhile, DRDO floated a tender for a platform, wheel platform. We were a part of the competition and we won. There were 2-3 other companies in the fray. So
domestic and foreign both?
Domestic.
Okay.
Yeah, foreign too. For the suspension system, there was a foreign player. So we won first. They floated a tender for the power pack. Yeah. We won that. Then they floated a tender for the driveline. We won that. And then they floated the tender for the hull and the integration. We won that too. So we've put it all together now. We have the orders in hand for 3 prototypes. And we are executing this. And we are very hopeful that we've made it modular. So, for example, if DRDO and the OFB get together and put the BMP turret on this, then this platform is good to go.
Varun, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that is the story of Tata Motors and its play in the defense sector. On that note, it's time for us to wrap up this episode of Make in India New Deal for Defense. From the entire team, goodbye. Many thanks for watching. See you again, same time, same place next week. Hello and welcome to Make in India, a new deal for defense. I'm Shireen Bhan. The Modi government's push for more indigenous defense manufacturing is attracting new players. But for established players like Bengaluru-based Alpha Design Technologies, it's a clarion call to innovate. Purnima Murli reports the company, which has been helping the Indian Army shoot straight even in the dark for over a decade, now plans to use its expertise to make a name for itself in precision equipment like shoulder-fired missiles and fighter aircraft.
That's Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar watching as Alpha Design Technologies signed an $80 million agreement with Elbit Elop of Israel at the Aero India show in February this year. This deal will have the 11-year-old Alpha Design Technologies manufacturing thermal imager fire control systems over the next 3 years. That's precision equipment that provides automatic firing capabilities on static during the day and night.
This is a thermal imaging fire control system used on T-72 tank. This provides a 24-hour fighting capability. Interestingly, this can fire at moving targets in the battlefield. The company has so far supplied 400 subsystems to Israeli-based Elbit, and this system will get integrated with other subsystems and in turn supplied to the Indian Army.
Alpha Design Technologies is not new to this area of defense equipment. For the last 10 years, every time the Indian Army takes down an enemy unit in a nighttime skirmish is thanks to this company. ADT cut its teeth in the defense business by helping India's border forces deal with intruders in the night with its optoelectronic and thermal size machines. Today, it supplies a wide range of similar or related equipment backed by homegrown research and development to many branches of India's defense forces, including the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force and paramilitary forces. So, it's no surprise that its biggest client is the Ministry of Defence. So far, ADT has bagged orders worth over 500 crore rupees and delivered products worth around 230 crore rupees.
I am inside the BMP-2 simulator. This is primarily used to train the gunner and the commander who will play vital roles in combat situations. This can simulate an entire battlefield, including the enemy tanks. The company has bagged an order for 50 crore rupees from the Ministry of Defence and will soon supply 57 such units.
The biggest client, of course, is MOD, and in MOD particularly oriented towards Army and Air Force. Navy, we haven't gone into that big extent, though we do small work for them. That is because we felt that Army requires quite a large number of equipment because the strength is large. Air Force also is something in quantities wise it is large. So we concentrated on these two fields. Of course, Army means I also include the Border Security Force. So that's how we expanded, and even today our clientage is this in the country.
Its repertoire of products now extends beyond just optoelectronic systems, communication systems and simulators.
Behind me is the Missile Launch Detection System Assembly Unit. This is primarily used to detect shoulder-fire missiles using UV sensor technology. Alpha has so far delivered 438 miles to Bharat Electronics for the Cheetah helicopter, which is used by the Indian Army. The company is all set to produce similar quantities for the Mi-17, which will be used by the Indian Air Force.
Being a 230 crore rupee company with an order book in excess of 1,400 crore rupees, Alpha works closely with electronic and defense bellwethers HAL, BEL and DRDO. With DRDO, the company has orders worth 10 crore rupees for over 40 subsystems, each in various stages of development, and plans to take this order book value to as high as 100 to 200 crore rupees. With HAL, it manufactures aircraft structures, and this alone gives it 100 crore rupees in revenues.
Alpha Design Technologies has not only transformed itself from being a supplier of optronics for the defense forces, but has also entered the league of companies that has capabilities to manufacture subsystems for the defense PSUs like HAL, BEL and DRDO. Now, after the break, we look at how Alpha Design has emerged as one of the few companies in the private sector to venture into the aerospace segment. Stay tuned. You're watching Make in India, a new deal for defense. Welcome back. You're watching Make in India, a new deal for defense. I'm Shireen Bhan, and today we're looking at the capabilities of Bengaluru-based Alpha Design Technologies. The foray of Alpha into the aerospace segment began when it acquired TOCOL in 2009. Today, this capability allows the company to undertake sub-assemblies of multi-role fighter jets like Sukhoi Su-30.
I am at Alpha TOCOL manufacturing facility in Bengaluru, which is a subsidiary of Alpha Design Technologies. TOCOL was acquired by Alpha in 2009, and this facility supplies critical aircraft structural assemblies to HAL.
Alpha's aviation business goes beyond imaging systems. It also manufactures major structural assemblies for fighter aircraft, trainer aircraft, UAVs and even space programs.
I am at the Sukhoi Su-30 assembly unit. Alpha TOCOL has so far supplied 150 units for Su-30, which will be used by the Indian Air Force.
These components range from rudders to flaperons to engine mounts to undercarriage doors. In the helicopter business segment, it manufactures critical cabin frames for the Sikorsky S-92 helicopters and even exports special toolings for Sikorsky USA. Its latest order in this vein comes from HAL for 120 sets of door assembly for the Airbus A320 aircraft. Its expertise and vast experience in this area has helped its subsidiary of ADT grow at over 500% over the last 5 years. It is looking for more private contracts and orders because having the government as its biggest client is not without its own unique challenges.
It's a tough job to do any job, any work with Army and Air Force in the sense. Firstly, it is time period is long. The gestation period is very long. unlike in the private sector, let's say Infosys or Wipro and all that, where they have a quick buck available over there. You just have to make that, have an order and then perform it. So within the 6 months to 1 year period of time, you have the money. Whereas here, it goes through a very, very long series of trials, evaluations, and then sometimes even RFPs getting out and being cancelled, one more RFP coming in, that's the request for proposal. So the time period is very long. So one has to have a lot of patience, perseverance, persistence, and of course, so that is the tough portion of it. And of course, the decision making, the process being long, decision making also is longer. So I think that is one of the areas where probably the improvement could be done in the decision making process. We have been at it. We have been bringing out these points to the MOD and the Army, Navy, Air Force and all that. Ourselves, as also as part of various organizations in which we are active members like FICCI, CII, ASSOCHAM and all that. And I think that is making some impact now.
Its interest in more private sector clients has meant that exports has become a major revenue driver. Today, nearly 50% of its revenues come from exports.
This is a thermal imaging sighting kit used in a BMP-2 tank to help gunners fire accurately in the night. This is one of the many systems the company exports. So far, it has exported 780 of the total 969 units it manufactured.
Exporting is related mostly with respect to the fire control systems and thermal sights. See, the thermal sights are those which so far, even in the Indian Army, other than few tanks of T-90 origin and a few Arjun tanks, did not have these thermal sights which can give the range and accuracies that were needed for accurate firing, and that to large distances during night, approximately 3 kilometers. So since we are doing it here, we repackage this, upgrade it, and then now through this company which we have signed the agreement with, we export it to other countries.
ADT is certain that the Modi government's Make in India drive will open the doors to much faster growth, especially in the field of defense manufacturing. But it is adamant that without more R&D, survival in a sector that is getting more competitive by the day will just not be possible. So, it says it will continue to invest 50% of its revenues in R&D, a move that will not only help increase its order book, but also give it a foothold and a first mover advantage in next frontier ideas in the defense space.
This is a commander's sight used in a BMP-2 tank. This helps commander observe long-distance targets during the night and extreme weather conditions. And this project is a joint development between Alpha and DRDO. And this is one of the 60 R&D projects that Alpha has undertaken.
We have been able to focus on quite a lot of interesting projects which are now coming up. Some are under trials and evaluation. Some are trials evaluation is completed out and waiting for the price negotiations to be done. Some of them price negotiations are done and we are waiting for the contract to be signed. So it is a sort of a stages. As far as our future is concerned, future is our R&D and future is what our colleagues have built up now as expertise with respect to the manufacturing and packaging and testing and activities connected with that. So these two will give us the basic building blocks for future, and the orders for which we are chasing and those which are on the offsets and the exports after this 1,400 crores is concerned, I think we have another about something around 3,000 to 4,000 crores for which we are looking at in future, so that this company becomes the base as far as the private sector defense oriented electronics and avionics facilities are concerned.
The very fact that the company is in a position to not only entertain but also work towards achieving these aspirations says something. After all, what began as a three-man company today employs over 850 highly skilled workers. So far, it has entered into 2 joint ventures, one in 2005 with Israel's ITL and the second with Italy-based Electronica. Alpha is now working on 2 to 3 more joint ventures and expects them to become a reality in the next 2 to 3 years. But for all that to actually mean something in terms of growth, the company says it is imperative that foreign direct investment in defense become an easier process.
At present also, if in critical technologies, the companies abroad can have more than 50% FDI, they can ask for it, but that has to go through the cabinet's approval and all that. So the time frame may be a bit larger. But I think with the present government over there who take quick decisions, I think that should not come in the way. But I'm sure it can be made as 51%, and maybe it can also go through what is called as the automatic route. At present, for any of the investment, even up to 49%, one has to go through what is called as the FIPB, Foreign Investment Promotion Board. They have to sit and take a decision. Whereas maybe that at some time it can be made on the automatic route, like in civil sectors, particularly in railways, it is coming in now.
Problems with FDI aside, the company is also facing hurdles when it comes to financing. And here it hopes the authorities will look into corporate guarantees as an acceptable basis for granting loans, especially to smaller companies like itself.
Funding. See, as I told you, the DPSUs get foreign exchange variation clauses there. For me, it is not there. Some of the work which I am doing, I have accepted the orders at $1 to 44 rupees. Today it is 64 rupees a dollar. So I have to bear with the loss for 20 rupees a dollar, which is very high for any of the procurement of components. I don't get it. Why? Because I am a private sector industry or a MSME. So we have said at least for MSMEs, give FERV. Second is, for taking an advance, some 15% advance is given when you sign a contract. I have to give a bank guarantee. When you go to the bank, they ask for collaterals. So very many of us in the MSMEs, we don't have collaterals as big lands and things like that and all that, like Tatas or L&T or public sectors and all that. So we have to put in the fixed deposit 100% of the money of that bank guarantee. They give the bank guarantee to take the same 100% as advance. It is foolish. So we have requested that don't ask for bank guarantees, ask from us corporate guarantees.
ADT hopes the government will also make changes to policies like the defense procurement policy, which is due to be released later this year.
Take the case of the projects which have been categorized under a category called as MAKE project. The MAKE project is allocated as per the DPP, present DPP, only for the companies or the consortiums, each one of them who have 1,000 crore rupees as turnover for the past 3 years, every year, and 100 crore rupees as the profit margin, net worth something like that. Public limited companies and not private limited companies. So what has happened is, this has been now, MAKE projects are just concentrated towards either defense public sectors or very big companies. People like us in the medium scale industries cannot take part for MAKE projects. What is MAKE? MAKE is something to be developed. The core competency and the technology is not with the major companies, big companies. They have gone out of it. They are only system integrators. The core competency is only with the medium scale industries and the small scale industries. Now they are debarred. They can't take part in the MAKE project. So what we have proposed now is divide this MAKE project into two categories, call it as MAKE big industries. Let them take, it doesn't matter, because ultimately it is making it in India. Make a separate category, call it as MAKE medium scale industry, MSMEs. Earmark some funds for this, some 500 crore rupees. It is a pittance as far as the government of India is concerned. Disburse it, distribute it, and that will come up much more than anything else. Then the methodology of selection for this is very, very cumbersome.
Tax concessions, it says, will not go unthanked either.
You see, tax is always on the profits. So at present, the profits, if I make some, let's say 10 crore rupees profit, almost 30% goes for tax. That is okay, as I told you, for bigger industries. Again, we have requested for MSMEs, give some concessions, 15%, you make, for MSMEs should pay only 50% of the tax that is there, and hopefully it will be accepted. That is the major problem. Otherwise, the tax-wise, the other things like VAT and excise duty and things like that is common, normal to anybody else and all that. and for defense products which we sell to the our own government, you don't have to pay the excise duty and other VAT and all that. Even if you pay, that will be refunded back. Exports, luckily, there are no such excise duty and VAT and all that.
ADT is confident that should things fall in place, the government's Make in India initiative will help it become a 350 crore rupee company by FY16 with executable contract orders with over $85 million. To get itself future ready, ADT is already working on setting up a 5.2-acre facility in the IT corridor of Whitefield. Once this is complete 2 years down the road, Alpha Defence Technologies sees itself becoming the alpha in the domestic defence manufacturing sector.
That was Bengaluru-based Alpha Designs. With nearly 1,400 crore rupees of orders in hand, Alpha Design is betting big on Make in India to take the next big leap. It hopes that the government will iron out all the issues and ensure that the private sector is treated on par with defence PSUs. It's also hoping that the government will allow medium-scale industries to bid for defence contracts based on capabilities and not on revenues. So, hope the government is listening. On that note, it's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Make in India New Deal for Defence. We'll be back again next week with another story from the Indian defence sector. Till then, from the entire team, goodbye and many thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to the special edition of Make in India New Deal for Defence. I'm Shireen Bhan and we're coming to you from San Francisco, the innovation capital of the world. And innovation is what we need in India's defence sector. Now, times, they are changing. The Indian defence industry has largely consisted of medium and small enterprises which supply essential components to the large system integrators. But not anymore. That story is changing. The MSME sector is slowly but surely coming out of the shadows. And this week on Make in India New Deal for Defence, CNBC TV 18 Sajit Manga travels to Maharashtra's automotive hub, Chakan, to look at the capabilities of Transport Solutions India, a 9-year-old company that's creating a niche for itself through specialized transport applications that help transport military shelters and weapon systems.
The onset of the monsoons is typically a lean season for most commercial vehicle players. But this facility in Chakan is bustling with activity. And by all accounts, it's promising to be a busy season, rain or no rain.
We are at the Chakan facility of Transport Solutions India. TSI is involved in the manufacturing of specialized trailers which are used for military shelters and weapon systems.
TSI's journey has not been a long one. It was started in 2006 by a father-son duo, VK Singh and Anand Singh. While VK Singh brought with him 37 years of experience with Tata Motors, his son gave up his job as a consultant with Price Waterhouse in the US. But this was hardly a spur-of-the-moment thing.
We founded TSI together in January 2006. We saw there was a void in the commercial vehicle industry related to truck applications. And since my father was also in Tata Motors for 37 years and he was part of this business, he had very good background and knowledge in this. And he said, let's stay focused on this with the objective to bring best technologies from Europe focused on specific niches in the commercial vehicle industry in India.
What began as a small operation in Pune quickly took on mammoth proportions. TSI roped in some of the world's largest specialized cargo transporters as it began building, streamlining and accentuating its offerings and created a name for itself in the specialized transport segment. For the most part, joint ventures has been the name of the game. TSI entered into a 49-51 JV with French Major Law for specialized automotive trailers. Then it forged a 50-50 JV with Holland BV to form HLM India, which allowed it to enter the cold chain applications or reefer trucks market. And then came an 80-20 JV with German-Finnish logistics player Mosoft.
Over the years, we have added several different leading truck application solution companies from Europe. We started with Lohr in 2008-9, then came Mosolf in 9-10 and HLM in 10-11 and so on and so forth. And then most recently into the defense sector with Sufram another French company.
These joint ventures allowed TSI to acquire the technology and design strength it needed to thrive, since all the company had to do was modify the technology and designs to suit Indian roads and pitch them to the Indian automobile OEMs. It was during one such pitch to Ashok Leyland that the commercial vehicle giant asked the father-son team to look at subsidiary Automotive Coaches and Components, or ACCL, which operated in a similar niche.
This was the more recent acquisition in 2013. It was the former Ashok Leyland Group company based in Chennai, with factories in Chennai, Pondicherry and in Oragadam. And they had also a lot of defense background, being part of the Ashok Leyland Group. So this acquisition, along with TSI's capabilities, had already got us a start into defense.
TSI, through this acquisition, gained access to ACCL's defense industrial license to manufacture armored vehicles. It also got operational manufacturing facilities in Chennai and Puducherry, and ACCL subsidiary PL Hallwell, which specialized in manufacturing tippers.
Through lore, yes. Through TSI's internal development, yes. And through the acquisition of ACCL PL Hallwell, which came in 2013. Through these, we entered into the defense field, each at different levels of penetration in different product segments. Sofram is more on the strategic side also. PL Hallwell has been there working with the DRDO, VRD, LPSC, all these different labs for the last 15-20 years as part of Ashok Leyland and now as part of our group. And of course, through TSI's own internal capabilities, working with VRD, Ahmednagar, because they are close by, and vehicle research development engineers, they visited us and they found that we have good capabilities ourselves.
So TSI's entry into defense was not so much by design as by default. TSI wasted no time in registering itself with the VRD, or the Vehicle Research Development Establishment, that falls under the DRDO's ambit. And after assessing TSI's capabilities, VRD began discussions with the company for the construction of military shelters. These are cabins that are mounted on specialized trailers and can be converted into command and control centers, makeshift kitchens, or any other space required by ground forces.
The Chakan facility is increasingly used to work with VRD. TSI is working with VRD to make specialized trailers like these.
We started with some simple trailers for carrying the IMS range, that is the military shelter range. We've also done, these are basically hydraulic axle trailers with hydraulic suspension, steering systems, etc. This is built by our knowledge of commercial vehicle trailers, and we are able to extend that into this field.
Then the orders got tougher. The VRD ordered SPTs, or special purpose trailers.
These are special purpose trailers for transport of some missiles. They're also for some containers. The overall program size I'm not aware of, but definitely it was about 24 such vehicles.
The company has already rolled out 3 of these from its Chakan plant and says it will have 10 SPTs ready to roll out by the end of July. Given this plant's proximity to VRD Ahmednagar, TSI is today busy consolidating all its VRD engagements at its Pune facility. But the real turning point for TSI came when the company was selected by the DRDO to manufacture the specialized trailers to transport the Agni 5 missile system. These specialized trailers have to be big enough to carry a payload of 140 tons. And for this project, TSI will use the expertise of its joint venture partner LOR. Hydraulically operated and self-steered, each Agni 5 missile which the DRDO plans to operationalize this year will need its own trailer. So at present 48 trailers are to be built, and this will take place at TSI's Puducherry facility. The company will deliver the first trailer in 21 weeks and thereafter one trailer every 13 weeks. Even with this accelerated production schedule, it will take at least 3 to 4 years to meet the initial target. The schematics are mind-boggling for a layperson, but not for TSI.
We started with some simple trailers for carrying the IMS range, that is the military shelter range. We've also done, these are basically hydraulic axle trailers with hydraulic suspension, steering systems, etc. This is built by our knowledge of commercial vehicle trailers, and we are able to extend that into this field.
Lohr is not the only JV partner who will play a part in this exercise. Lohr's subsidiary SoFrame has also been roped in for its extensive expertise in manufacturing of transportation products for the defense industry. Now this JV, in which TSI holds 49%, is yet to be operationalized due to extant FDI guidelines, but TSI is working around the hurdle.
Right now, it's not a straight answer I will give you, because the way the requirement of 49, 51, all of these are there. We have a simple MOU in place together. What we are doing is the design engineering is with SoFrame. They are providing the design engineering to us, and the joint venture in India is the actual manufacturing arm that is producing these things.
The biggest challenge for MSMEs like TSI is the challenge of financial stability, especially when working on NCNC or no-cost, no-commitment projects. To spell this out, NCNC is a process where a vendor develops or manufactures equipment without a guarantee that DRDO or any other defense agency will either pay for the cost of development or place orders. TSI and its French partners have ventured into this category on a test basis, where TSI will be manufacturing specialized 70-ton tank transporters to carry the battle tank Arjun. This order has come from BEML, and again its JV partner Lohr will chip in with financial and technological support.
They have a lot of experience in this because they have built this for the French army, Polish army, Belgian army, Italian army, a lot of different armies all over the world. And they have a tank which is very similar to the Arjun tank in terms of size, weight, etc. So for them, this is something which they've already done and built several numbers of. The challenge was that we had to adapt that for India in terms of the truck which is pulling it. It's a Tatra truck, so it's not a semi-trailer, it's a drawbar trailer. So there is a different configuration in terms of weight transfer.
TSI's focus, however, is not restricted to the business of specialized cargo transport. It is in the process of renewing its industrial license for its Chennai facility. That's where it expects partner Ashok Leyland, which has won an order for armoured vehicles, to build light armoured strike vehicles.
ACCL has the license for armouring. Most recently we got it renewed also with the Home Ministry. There are certain programs for the light strike vehicle, which one of our customers, Ashok Leyland, is leading in that. So we're getting ready for these light strike vehicle requirements that will be required to be made on a platform with armouring.
TSI's long-term relationship with Ashok Leyland goes beyond this order. It is also working with Ashok Leyland to build specialized cabins on Leyland's Stallion platform for the army. Over the last 9 years, TSI has grown into a 200 crore rupee company, which sees nearly 5% of its revenues coming from the defense sector. But with the government's Make in India drive shifting to higher gear, it hopes to take this contribution up to 15% in the next couple of years, propelling the company towards turnover exceeding 500 crore rupees over the next few years.
Well, clearly there are some big aspirations and dreams that TSI is working towards. It's time now for us to take a short break here, but when we return on Make in India, New Deal in Defence, we look at the challenges that TSI and its joint venture partners face in the Indian defence market. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Make in India, New Deal for Defence. I'm Shireen Bhan. The company we're talking about today is Transport Solutions India, a 9-year-old company that specializes in designing and manufacturing transport systems. Now, TSI's latest order comes from BEML and involves the manufacture of specialized transporters to carry 70-ton tanks like the battle tank Arjun. This order is a litmus test not only for TSI but also for many small and medium-sized companies which do not have the financial capability to handle no-cost, no-commitment projects. Sajit Mangat explores how foreign partners in the MSME space are looking at the Indian defence market.
Government policies, they're the biggest hurdle for most private companies looking to make a name for themselves in the defence field space. Take for instance the MAKE program. It's been in effect for at least 5 years now, but is yet to make a difference to the sector. For one, most of the defence projects being awarded to Indian companies fall under the NCNC or No Cost No Commitment category. This means there is no guarantee that the money they invest in the R&D of the product will be reimbursed or that the finished product will even be accepted. For companies, this restricts stable cash flows and more often than not becomes a burden on the cash flow from regular business. When the company in question is a micro, small and medium enterprise, this makes for a very precarious situation.
In fact, one of the challenges that we face as a small and medium enterprise is that we need to do a lot of NCNC work. And the tank transporter for Arjun that we are making is also an NCNC. And Sofram from France is funding the full NCNC cost involved, and the joint venture is manufacturing it in India.
It is a difficult market for a small company to enter because you require a lot of investment. And for people like us with limited resources, yeah, it has been a challenge. It took us some time to really decide to go for it.
Forget financial constraints. Delays in the procurement process have also forced quite a few companies to drop projects midway, and this only adds to the uncertainty and frustration.
For a small, medium scale company to be 100% focused on defense is always a challenge because of this exact reason. Because programs come, they get delayed, they get changed, they get stopped, and you cannot really have a very clear visibility as a small company as to how much you can rely on these type of things. You have to be prepared, and that's why, for example, in our company also it's not that big share of our business, because we have to pay our bills each month, we have to have our overheads that have to be taken care of, the banks, etc.
To add to the problem, every large Indian defense company works with an ecosystem of MSMEs. And since policies and regulations are not generally framed keeping the MSMEs in mind, these companies don't always benefit. Working with large players also comes with its own set of hurdles.
In the full ecosystem and in the full value chain, you have everybody playing their role and everybody pulling the strings depending upon their strength and capability. Definitely the larger players have a lot more influence in how things move. A lot of the times we have to get aligned with the larger players, and we do have our value to provide, but we do not have the positioning that can allow us to necessarily dictate or influence the return on the value that we provide.
If you see the defense sector in Europe or elsewhere, you have very specialized small supplier, but what? In their technology far superior than the largest one. So that makes a difference, and that is not happening in India. The big companies are controlling the orders, and then they are buying whatever technology required for this program, and the margin stays at the level of the large group.
This situation has companies like TSI hoping that the new policies arising out of the Modi government's Make in India initiative will be framed keeping MSMEs in mind and do their bit to smooth the way for these companies to grow and thrive. After all, at the end of the day, jobs and skills are developed at the MSME level and not at the level where large system integrators play ball.
We provide the jobs, we provide the skills, give us the means to do more without hamstringing us at every step of the way. That's the message from companies like TSI, which are hunting for ways to expand their product portfolio and deepen ties with foreign partners. It's time now for another quick break here. But on the other side, Sajid speaks to Anand Singh on some of the more nuanced challenges of being an MSME in the defense space and takes a closer look at the specialized projects that TSIS is handling. Welcome back. You're watching Make in India, New Deal for Defence, and this week we're in Chakan in Maharashtra taking a closer look at Transport Solutions India, a 200 crore rupee company that's still carving out a niche for its